You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Connor Jeffrey Barnes, aka the Condor.
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
So, answer me this, Connor. Has the Condor landed in the nest?
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely my nest. I'm perched up where I'm at. Um, I'm in my bedroom, so to speak, and I've been in this bedroom on and off for like 14 years. So if anywhere is my nest, it is here, sir.
It is, let me tell you, there is no better comfortability than inside your bedroom. I'm telling you, you can literally feel naked and not be judged.
Oh yeah, I'm not really somebody who's ever felt comfortable being naked, ever. Like, even in situations where it's absolutely necessary, like even showering, I
Bruh,
don't
I got
feel
a
like,
six pack and I hate taking my shirt off to get in the shower. So I know how
yeah,
you
see,
feel.
I don't have that, but I definitely don't feel good about
That's why
taking my
you
clothes off.
That's why you wear shower shorts with a comfortable shower wallet for all your necessities.
Yeah, but then I can't wash my downstairs region.
You don't need to unless you use it a lot. If you use it a lot, then please, for the love of God, put some bleach on that sucker. But I'm letting you know that comfortability that shorts can apply in the shower is a whole new versatile option. You can keep the hairbrush in the back pocket. You can do whatever you need.
That's awesome.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Connor?
I'm 30. I'm a father to a 3-year-old. Um, I see her as often as I can. She lives on the other side of the state. I produce a podcast called Talking Chaos that airs once a week on Mondays at 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every once in a while, I put together comedy shows at a local bar, and I bring in comedians from metropolitan regions that are a little farther away because I come from an area where there's not a lot of entertainment. So I don't go on stage. I don't perform comedy. I'm not a comic by any means.
You just set up the process for those people to get on stage.
Yeah,
That's a big thing. Talk to any comedian, whether they're stand-up comic, whether they're just someone that performs skits. They talk about where they started out, and they also talk about the clubs that actually let them perform, talking about how they're major uh just influencers in their life that help them have the capability to perform on stage.
well, and they influence too. That's the other plight. Like, I wouldn't be here doing this with you if it weren't for them and what I've gotten to experience through these comedians. They drove me to start a podcast, and learning new things about that environment and cultivating relationships and networking. I've learned a ton in the last year or so.
Well, so what are the types of things you've really learned? I guess you would have to, one of them would have to be humbled a little bit in a way. I think the idea for a comedian is it gets harder and harder to be a comedian when everybody's becoming a little bit sensitive. But comedians do the best role, and that's bring laughter into your life. And sometimes that joke that seems a little bit over the edge, which a lot of comedians are kind of afraid of finding out what that joke is, it truly hinders them from creating a wonderful masterpiece and performing the art they actually enjoy performing.
Oh yeah, but there were like very few rules that I had as like a quote unquote producer that I stuck to that were very um they had it was very important that those rules existed under the circumstances that they did. One of the first rules that I had was I wasn't going to censor anybody. If you wanted to go do the joke, see how it goes. The other process was that like everybody had to start with a 5-minute set. Unless you could prove to me through documentation or viewership or some sort of fan base that you were worth money in getting on stage as a headliner, I wasn't gonna like trust you on your word.
Yeah, you got to make sure you have traction. I think a lot of the time people go up and they're like, "Oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this," and it's like they go up on stage and they don't know what to do. They just fall down into something, and it ends up being a horrible show. I think what's crazy is you see comedians that talk about getting other comedians on stage, like forcing them to go up on stage, and when they do, they will sit by the owner of the club and laugh really, really obnoxiously loud on purpose to try and get attention. Joe Rogan talked about doing that for Ari Shaffir in a very a lot of popular comics. See, the problem is when you're running a show or when you're running a business in a club or some sort, you have to make sure that it's going to be attractive to the audience as well. You don't want to have some guy upstage cracking nothing but dick jokes for 15 minutes in a crowd of elderly people that don't really want to hear that. You want to make sure that it's creating a comfortable environment to bring more attention not only to the comic but also to the club in general.
Well, okay, little context for you. It wasn't a club. I operated mainly out of bars that could facilitate sort of what I was bringing to the table. Ideally, they had a stage space, not necessarily a stage or the fancy stuff that goes with that, lighting, etc. But one did, and that's the one I'm working with right now. And I can fit comfortably about 150 people into this bar and have a good time at a comedy show. Um, the cool part is the shows are pretty long. Like an hour and a half long comedy show is a long show. And when you're doing like 8 5-minute acts, like you really got to know what you're doing on stage. And the cool part is because they're only 5 minutes long, it gets people's attention. And then if they don't care, somebody's on again very quickly.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how long it takes for someone to be on stage and be able to perform jokes. Most comedy specials you watch on Netflix or YouTube only last about an hour, and that's because it's an hour of material, it's an hour of nonstop jokes. It's hard to be funny literally 24/7. It's just difficult. A lot of times when a comedy special comes out, it's once every couple of years because it takes a while to craft that hour to truly perfect your routine. You got to see what comes
Oh,
on the
yeah.
stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's difficult because a lot of people that do go up on stage, especially if you're a stand-up comic, you're dealing with 20 minutes. You're dealing with a set, a very, very small set. And so you're restricted. But the weird thing is, which you probably have noticed kind of monitoring and getting these comedians on stage, you got to be careful about who you line up first. Because when you put someone up on stage as the opening act, even though you know that's the opening act and they're supposed to be a little bit rough, if he comes on stage making fun of the whole crowd, then the whole crowd's already like, oh my God, like I don't want to hear anybody else that's performing after him, which really screws up the line for all the other comics following.
Kind of. It also tests them, because this is an experience that every comic should eventually have experienced, and it builds character. It gives you some of that thick skin and resilience and teaches you how to come back from a bad act. Like, I was talking to other comedians a lot when I was doing this, and I wanted to figure out from them what the best strategy was with the formula that I had sort of come up with. And a lot of them were like, you're worried about bringing people on stage that are going to suck. Don't. There's going to be people that suck. It's our job as good comics to bring the audience back, to like come
Well,
on stage
you got to
immediately
show
after that.
you got to show resilience in coming back from something like someone a lot of times like there's a giant thing that was happening it's still kind of happening today with black comedians only on the fact that they want to crack all those jokes first, all the oh you don't know what it's like to be a black guy, they want to crack the race joke. That's why they try and fight for who wants to be the opening act. A lot of times when someone's a mainliner, they want that, oh yeah, I'm gonna headlight the show because I want people to be out there really looking for me as the ending act. You want to wrap it up. That's a lot of pressure a lot of times. Sometimes really, really famous comedians want to go on stage first. And you hear other comics hear that and they get put on stage after that guy and they don't feel like they can follow up to that same person. Only because, some comedians have different experiences. Some comedians vibe in a different environment. I could tell you Sam Kinison back in his day, if he was to go on stage now, he probably wouldn't get a lot of traction only on the fact that people have changed from when he was a comedian. He was seen as an outlandish comic. I don't know if you know too much about Sam Kinison.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm very
Um,
familiar, for sure. I know that I sound young, but I've got an old soul. So
Hey,
like,
I'm younger than you, and I know who Sam Kinison is. I think it's just the idea that nobody really wants to look up who these wonderful path makers in life were, especially in the comedic field. Like, all my
well, and
experience comes from.
he was still on tour when I was a kid, so I saw him in like news headlines, news related articles.
You
He
probably
was
saw him at the end of
definitely,
his day, though.
yeah. It
That's
wasn't during
that
the
that was
heyday.
his worst moments was at the end of his times. People were talking about how he was just angry and pissed off all the time.
I mean, that
That
was
was his stick. But the
yeah.
fact was it wasn't the same Sam Kinison that, Joe Rogan, all my experience from Sam Kinison comes from like Joe Rogan's experience and other older comics like Tom Papa when I first saw, like I go back and watch their very first specials and you literally see this guy form. You see these people, comedians change with their environment, change with the times. It's all about staying constant. Like you don't want to be cracking. Well, you ever walk up to the paper towel dispenser and it just doesn't dispense the paper towels? I mean, come on. That's some Jerry Seinfeld comedy. I understand it, but that worked maybe 20 years ago. That does not work now. That
I
type of thing it won't even sink into the crowd. They're just going to
I
sit there
gotta
with eyes
disagree
closed.
with you a little bit because it's all about how it's delivered. It's all about the comic who wrote the material and is figuring out like what steps it takes to deliver this joke correctly. Under any circumstances, any joke is fine. It's just about how it gets delivered. I'm not somebody who has ever like let the political correctness of any given culture at the time affect how I perceive comedy. Like, if something's hilarious, I'm gonna laugh. I don't care who it's making fun of or who's getting thrown under the bus. I'm an equal opportunity offender when it comes to my humor.
Yeah, I think that's the correct way to handle it. That's how I handle it too. That's how I look at it. But a lot of people don't nowadays because I think what happened was a lot of people started feeling like they didn't matter and their opinion and their views didn't matter, which gave them a voice to kind of outbreak when they heard some type of offensive comedy. The biggest evidence I could show would be Dave Chappelle's comedy skit. Okay, I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix. It's
The
called
most recent one?
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen it.
it's called Sticks and Stones. I've seen that 15 times and I've laughed my ass off even harder every time I watch it. Only because of the fact everything he's saying is true.
Yeah,
Everything is he's saying
yeah.
is something literally highlighting the dumbest aspect of how we take words today and we let it hurt us. They used to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt you. That has changed today. Sadly, people feel like words do hurt them and they take it to such an extent to get someone booed off stage, or they take it to an extent to literally end that person's career. It actually what happened with the Dave Chappelle show that he talks about in Africa. The reason why he went down in Africa is because he went there after the Dave Chappelle show got canceled because a bunch of people came out against him, calling him offensive comic and literally belittled his name. Now, anybody that knows Dave Chappelle from the start can tell you right now that's his comedy, and we love every minute of it. The whole factor is he's outlying, not to be outlandish, not to be made fun of, not to whatever. The list goes on and on. He's doing it because it's an irrational way of taking something and running with it so seriously that we let it affect our lives.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I think that Dave is one of the rawest observational comics out there. Jerry Seinfeld may be the purest observational comic that exists. If that's the case, then Dave Chappelle is the rawest.
Well, if you want to say Jerry Seinfeld's the purist, I think we have to look at the one dude that was the purist before we found out all that nasty stuff about him.
No, I don't know that he would have been the purest observational comic, but he's right up there with Dave as far as like raw. Like they don't care what they're mentioning.
I meant
They're gonna put it.
Mr. Bill Cosby, good sir.
Oh yeah, he was
Jerry
pretty good.
Seinfeld is now known as, I guess, would be one of the purest, only because he never really curses in his everyday. Well, he never really cursed on stage. He curses
Yeah,
in
but
his everyday life. He curses all the
it's the
time.
way that he puts jokes. Like there was a way that Ricky Gervais referred to this once, and it was sometimes in my mind, a joke is the shortest amount of words to get to a punchline. And Jerry writes jokes in that sense.
Well, yeah,
They are not these elaborate stories. They are this, bing, bang, boom, done, punchline, laugh.
well, that's why each comedian has their own gig, has their own stick, has their own little title they play by. You want to be known as the offensive comic. You want to be known as the stand-up comic. You want to be known as the adopted comic. You want to be known as what? It's about finding your niche and what works for you. A lot of what happens with comedians nowadays, I've podcasted with a few stand-up comics, and they talk about the fact that when they go on stage, the first couple of minutes, they feel like they have to structure themselves, at least when they first start out, off of a famous comedian. I know a few of them that always bring back the reference to Kevin Hart, being a little bit outlandish, a little crazy on stage. I don't know if you've ever seen Kramer from Seinfeld. When he
Hmm.
goes on stage, it's really sad seeing him on stage now because you know him from his real popularity came from the Seinfeld show. And as much as I hate that show, Kramer, I think it was a couple of years ago, he did a thing. One of the comedians was talking about that I was listening to, where he would go on stage and hurt himself, like the movie Jackass. Those types of guys that hurt themselves to get
Yeah,
a
Michael
laugh.
Richards is his name. He also got in a ton of trouble not too many years ago for screaming the N-word at a uh, dark complected guest or ticket holder for one of his shows. And it was really, really messed up. The funniest part is that there's actually a Dave Chappelle sketch about Kramer that you can find somewhere on YouTube. He's at the Laugh Factory. It's hilarious.
I think what's funny is the whole idea that people can take a line of being so sensitive and push it even closer to the sensitive mark when they let every single thing offend them, and they're literally sitting there with a notepad calling out everything you're saying, like, and also kind of morphing the words. I think you lose the whole aspect. You pay for a comedy show. You shouldn't be offended if a joke gets told in a manner you don't like. If you don't like the joke, then don't laugh, but don't ruin it for everybody else.
Right, there's it's ownership of your own emotions. Don't don't put it on me how something makes you feel. I didn't impose that on that. This is how your brain works. So own up to the fact that like you're offended, but it's none of anybody else's business but your own.
How did you get into the comedy world? Like, what do you do professionally? Do you make this off? You can't make a living off just doing comedy shows, can you? Or do you do something else?
For the last 10 years or so, I was a on again, off again delivery guy for multiple like chain pizza restaurants.
How did you? Oh,
Um,
hold on. I got so many questions on that one. First of all, how many of it, like deliveries that you go on, were kids or really, really overweight older guys that live by themselves?
yeah, a ton of those.
Okay. Now, was it just kids when it came to the idea that their parents left them like $20 for pizza? Because I was probably one of those kids that ordered.
Well, and now with technology, like a lot of the time, the parents would call up and pay with a credit card and then add the tip over the phone, and then you just hand the kid the pizza. They
Oh
don't have
my
to do
God.
anything.
No, that was the whole scary factor of ordering a pizza is you had to wait for that guy to come up to the door. And then when you delivered the pizza, you had to give him the money, make sure you had the correct amount of money. And it was a giant anxiety factor, but it was such a adult, I guess, adult experience for me. Like doing that when I was a kid, I felt like I was like progressing in the world, even though I was just literally getting a Domino's pizza with like a 2 liter of Mountain Dew.
Yeah, see, we were always broke, so I only ever got DiGiorno. And when we did order pizza, my uncle Steve would deliver it because he worked for a pizza place too, and so we would get like discounts and stuff. So there was never any thrill or like, I never really got a kick out of the fact that the pizza guy was coming because it was my uncle Steve.
Well, for me, it was like I was at a friend's house, about to game out on some Xbox or something. I'm a kid, 12 years old, got $20 in the pocket, enough to order as much as I possibly can off Domino's and see where the night takes me from there. Usually waking up at the next day pretty tired and with a stomach ache.
That's pretty funny.
Well,
Um,
I think it's weird. Do you think that would be an easy job, being a delivery driver? I find it very tasking considering the fact that, like, You have to walk up to the person and hand them something, and they don't really look at you with a lot of respect or credit when they get the pizza. When honestly, I think
Most
the
people could not be happier to be receiving their food.
how many
Uh,
of these people are stoned out of their mind when they get the pizza?
it depends on how late it is.
Now, when did you see the most stoners ordering pizza? Like you got like a high relative. You
Well,
probably had your slow moments, then you had the busy moments. I'm guessing around lunch and dinner, and then at like towards like 2 o'clock in the morning, you're probably getting like the weirdest phone calls for like a pizza with everything on it but the cheese, and you're like, what?
I fall into that category. So more often than not, I'm trying to assist the guy because I've been in his shoes. Like I've been the guy who got really lit. It's 1:30 in the morning. All I want is a pizza. And the guy calls up and he's like, "Hey man, like I ordered some food last week, but I don't remember what it was." And I'll be like, "Oh, dude, that's cool. We got you in the system. Here, this is what you got. Like pineapple, anchovies, and ham." And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I'll have another one of those."
Now it's not just pizza orders, right? Like you're doing like other breadsticks and stuff. I always found like I was limited to that, but then I found out what like mozzarella sticks were and stuff, and I was like, "Yo, toss them bitches in with the pizza." No, 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 no. I want you to roll it all up into a taco, okay? I want you to fold the pizza with all this stuff inside of it and then deliver it to me. And the guy's like, "Are your parents home?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Do you have enough money to pay for this?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes."
None of that is bizarre. It's when people call you up asking if you can go get them a six pack. That's when
What?
things get weird.
Who's
Yeah,
who's calling you up for a six pack? You're
it
ordering from
happens way more
Domino's.
often. Yeah, dude, you would be surprised how I've worked for that establishment, and while I was working there, somebody called and asked if we could go buy them beer.
You know what has to be the weirdest option is when you get like a list of like, can I get a double, can I get three large pizzas, double on the mozzarella sticks with and like just ordering a bunch of like cinnamon bun, just like random stuff. And then all you hear is, and can I get a small salad? It's like, you didn't want any more diabetes on that diabetes you just ordered? No,
Yeah,
no.
maybe they have a rabbit, man, and if the rabbit needs
No,
food.
there's one person there. There's one person at that party that is a vegan, and he's like, "I'll just have a salad," and you're like, "What do you eat, bro? You really want the pizza? Just don't even lie to me right now."
I'm pretty deep in the Midwest, and even we have vegans. Like that shit is deep. It's pretty out there.
Is that a conspiracy theory? I think if you're a vegan and you're ordering from a pizza place, like, can I just get a salad? It's like, excuse me, sir, you're ordering from Pizza Hut and you want a salad? Yeah, I'd like just a salad, with like a side of I don't know, some
I-
tomatoes or
I'm
something. You're
pretty
like,
confident that every salad at Pizza Hut actually has meat in it. So you'd have to have the salad removed or the
that was
meat
the
removed
best
from
part
the
of Pizza
salad.
Hut. That was the best part of Pizza Hut was the fact that they had a salad bar. And then everyone started coming out like, "Oh, there's people sneezing on the salad." I'm like, "You guys suck because you got that taken away." And now there's barely any Pizza Huts in my area. There's only Papa John's and there's Domino's. And sadly, Domino's is probably the best delivery pizza I've ever had. Um,
It's all
it's
right.
it's the crust. It's the crust, dude. They put I figured out what it was a long time ago, and it's what I put in my salad like every day. It's oregano. They dump the shit of oregano all over that pizza, and let me tell you, that's the only reason it tastes good.
You could be onto something. I personally worked at a mom and pop pizza place, which is like it's like a non-corporate, like handmade. We built the recipes ourselves, sort of pizza joint, right? And that's the best pizza in the world, especially when you get to like when you're bored and it's the middle of the day and you just get to experiment. Like we had a pizza called the Smokehouse Pizza. There was brisket, there was pork sausage. We put a bunch of smoked meats in there with some white gravy, and it had like a top crust with like smoked Gouda cheese in it. It was ridiculous. It was like $27 for this dumb pizza, but it was one of the most delicious things I've ever had in my life.
How hard do you think it is to keep those types of businesses, like small company, family-owned businesses that are pizza joints, still established when you got Papa John's and all these other places that seem to be dominating the market?
I mean, I will tell you that I left that business because it went out of business. It did not succeed, even in this like town of 30,000 people that I'm from. Um, we have probably five different places that you can order pizza from, and so the competition was just too stiff for our customer base.
I think a lot of things like people started ordering Papa John's a lot more because of what they started doing, at least in my local area. They were covering up potholes with each like a little bit of pizza money that they were getting from their orders. They were taking a small percentage of it and refilling potholes in the area. So a lot of what Papa John's, like it became increasingly big, and then it just stopped because they stopped doing that project. They just stopped filling in potholes. They would do the weirdest thing too, and they filled it in. They would stamp their face on it, so that whole idea was like, this is a Papa John's pothole.
Yeah, Domino's started doing the same thing.
But see, it's hard because when you're a kid and you're going and ordering from places, it was very limited back in the day. It was like you could order Domino's or you could order from a Chinese restaurant or you could order from like a sub shop. Those were three options. Okay. They were businesses. They didn't sell anything else. Domino's didn't sell, Chinese food. Domino's didn't sell gummy worms. Domino's didn't sell whatever. And now kids nowadays have an app on their phone called Uber Eats. And all they do is they Uber Eat something to their house. And the guy picks you up literally anything you want.
Yeah,
You want
I want a tin of
Starbucks?
Panda Express. I need one taco from Taco Bell. Get my Starbucks Frappuccino, and I'll bring it to my house in the next half hour.
I wonder if they charge per place they have to go to.
Absolutely.
Like,
As
I want
somebody who's been a
to.
delivery guy for Uber, I've worked in that field. You're absolutely correct. Every place that you add on to go to next, there's definitely charges and fees attached to that. So by the time you're getting all this stuff, it's going to cost you like $50.
I think it's like I think it's ridiculous how they have so many options now. I mean, it's cool, but I also think those were moments when you were a kid, like you were confined to a menu. Like you were
Oh
like,
yeah, from
this
the
is the
phone book.
takeout. Yeah, this is a takeout menu. I have to read this, and can only order off this. And then you ask for something like, "Do you guys?" No, sir. We only sell what is on the menu. Okay, we only sell what's there. This is Domino's. Okay, we're not gonna make you fucking omelet. We're not gonna make you all this other stuff. Just order a pizza like we know you're going to anyway, and then so we get on with our night. Okay, thank you.
I've had people so inebriated call up a pizza establishment they're looking for and have like, I'd like to order a quarter pounder and fries. I'm like, sir, I don't think you understand who you called. This is McDonald's, right? I need some fries delivered. And I'm like, wow, wow, dude,
Dude, I'm telling
wow.
you, man. I think it's the fact, like, when it's really weird. If you go to McDonald's and you order a salad, like they're like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're not. You think it's gonna be healthy? Like, come on. I know you're trying to better yourself here, but let me tell you something. It's if you order a cheeseburger, it's gonna be a little bit better for you. Like, you don't go somewhere that has a name like that or a stereotype like that and then order something off that sort. It's not human. It's not.
Some people do it out of convenience and to be healthy, but I'll be honest, every once in a while, I think wouldn't it be easier to go to the grocery store, buy a bag of lettuce and a thing of ranch and just build your own salad?
Yeah, kids are going to do that now with Uber Eats. Can you go to the grocery store? I want you to pick me up and then like name off a list of groceries, have them delivered to their house. And can you put them in the fridge for me and also make me some dinner while you're down there? I want a brisket. No, I want a turkey that's going to incubate in the oven for a little while, a couple days.
No,
You're going
no,
to have to
dude.
come back.
They wanna play binging with Babish, so they want somebody to go get all the groceries for them, and then they're gonna try to recreate it, but end up ordering Taco Bell through Uber Eats later, anyways.
Oh my God, they're sacrificing that person's time and effort. Now, what would you say are the weirdest calls besides just a intoxicated people at 2 o'clock in the morning, usually for getting their order? What would you say one of the weirdest ones that have ever stood out into your mind, whether it was a delivery, whether it was like, I don't know, anything you could think of?
Usually, the weird stuff happens when I get there. Like, not too many things happen that are weird on the phone. You get prank calls from kids sometimes. That's pretty common occurrence. One or two hang-ups in a row, something like that. But the things that you experience on deliveries is the strangest shit. I delivered to a bachelorette party once, and when I got there, they started taking my shirt off.
Did you not roll with it?
I mean, no, I'm
I
not
would have been
really.
like, let's go, pepperoni for everybody, and then ripped off the shirt and just started jumping around.
No, dude, it was like 98 degrees outside and I couldn't do it. Like I'm hot and uncomfortable and at work. I'm trying to make money here. Like I understand you guys might throw like 70 bucks my way to like strip, but it's not worth my dignity.
I'm thinking about all about the dollar bills, y'all. If they want extra cheese on their bread, I'm gonna be more than happy to suffice. You know what I mean? I think it's the whole idea, like it's really so how pissed off would you get when someone would prank call and then you'd go to deliver a pizza and the person would be like, I didn't order a pizza, and you're sitting there at their doorstep like, well, it's said to this address.
I mean, I never had any loyalty to the businesses that I worked for, but my loyalty was always to the customers, and customer service is priority number one, so I just deal with it. Like, prank calls never like frustrated me or pissed me off. It was always a matter of like, okay, this kept me from doing dishes for 3 minutes. Like that's how I perceive it in my mind. Is it a mild hindrance? It's not anything that's ever frustrated me because I kind of knew it was coming. Like I pranked called my fair share of pizza joints back in my teenage days. So I just knew like shit was gonna come around. These chickens were gonna roost at some point.
I think it sucks when a dude comes all the way out there and then he's like, hey, did you order a pizza? And you're like, no. And he's like, oh, like, does that pizza get thrown out? Does that pizza do they eat it? What happens?
Sometimes if it goes bad, we'll just take it home and try to eat it. Day old pizza is a pretty common thing for pizza employees to eat.
It's pretty
Um,
good, dude. Honestly, you leave that pizza, like you don't eat it and then you just have it in the fridge the next day. It's pretty, actually, a cold pizza is actually pretty nice.
I don't like cold pizza. I've never liked cold pizza, but I'm also very particular. I hate tomato sauce.
How
So
the hell do you eat pizza?
I pick a different sauce.
You pick like Alfredo or something?
Barbecue a lot of the time.
I thought, but isn't pizza made with sauce unless you're using like Alfredo pasta sauce or something?
No, dude, instead of pizza sauce, just lay down barbecue sauce.
Oh God, I did not know that. See, I always get the pizza with the cheese and everything already on it. So then anything I add on top of it's like kind of my sacrifice. It's like Chipotle when you order a burrito and then ask the guy to make it the way he would want to eat it, and he loads up a bunch of shit you don't like even if you're allergic to it, you still got to sit there and choke that sucker down.
I've never
You're like, I paid for it. I told you, I trust you, and I let you make this for me, and you put everything I'm allergic to on this. So someone grab an EpiPen because shit's about to get real.
I laughed real hard because I'm allergic to kiwis. So if kiwis somehow ended up on my burrito, I'm gonna be pretty upset anyways.
As long as you're not the guy that's allergic to like peanuts or allergic to like, I don't even know. I guess the nut allergy probably be the biggest one I could think
Oh
of.
no, I straight up turn into Mick Jagger when I get these kiwi on my lips. Like I got huge, giant Mick Jagger lips. My eyes go bloodshot like I'm high as all hell, and I just get real woozy. And nothing.
You were always that hated person in class when you were like allergic to something, and then the whole class couldn't have like a specific thing for
I
that
mean,
because of you.
not really. It was just kiwi, man. Like
Well,
there
I'm
was no.
not meaning you. I mean, if you're that person that's allergic to peanuts, and then the whole class can't
Oh
have
yeah,
peanut
for
M&Ms,
sure,
you're
for
just an
sure.
asshole. Like I can't have a peanut butter sandwich at lunch because this guy's got a nut allergy. Well, then don't
Right.
sit next to me. You wanna socialize? Well, I don't want you near me, so I smothered peanut butter under my armpit. So you get near me, you're going to inflate.
Yeah, I have peanut breath this week, so good luck, Tommy. GTFO.
That's difficult because I've had friends that have like they've been in a relationship and their significant other did not tell them they were allergic to something, and they ate something one time, like it was like I think it was like a certain type of fish, and that dude went to go kiss her. Next thing you know, she's like all like passed out on the ground and stuff. He's like, I did not do any type of slipping of drugs into her drink. So I have no idea why she's acting like this. I'm like, that's why you got to make sure you're aware. I mean, how many times you probably get some weird things like formations or different things you've had to do when you create a pizza? Like someone's like, I'm allergic to a certain type of seasoning and you can't put that on your pizza.
Right, or gluten, which is why a lot of pizza places use cornmeal now instead of
Cauliflower
flour.
pizza. Like what the hell?
Yeah, man, for the gluten-free people.
Yeah, but I think gluten free is that's like it's not even really a thing. I think people are like, "Oh, gluten makes me feel bad." You're like, "Do you know what gluten is?" And no one can ever say what gluten is.
I don't know, man. When you feel like that you're urinating out of your other exit, that's when you know that you're allergic to gluten. When
Look,
like everything's coming out like a waterfall, that's a bad situation. And I know
if you're
gluten does
eating
that to some
anything,
people.
if you're eating anything from like Taco Bell at 2 o'clock in the morning, then you got to know that shit's gonna happen. Literally, shit's going to happen. Like, I think that's what your
Yeah, but I
sacrifice
know
is.
that the for what okay, say you and I eat Taco Bell, we understand what we're gonna go through. But what happens is for some people that are have a gluten intolerance, say they have a single beer. And what happens to you and I when we eat Taco Bell happens to them when they drink a single beer. That is gluten intolerance for you.
Yeah, but you're talking to someone right now who has a gluten intolerance, and I can tell you right now, I know what I'm getting into anytime I have something that does have gluten in it. You know, I work the ins and outs of it. I also know that it's gonna feel hella good after it's all over with. So,
Like the beer is worth
well,
it.
sometimes a cleanse is what you need, good sir. I just consider anything that I do and that happens, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just cleansing myself out for the day. I'm getting rid of all the bad energy that was in my
How
mind.
old are you?
I'm only 21.
Oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. What have you been on any adventures since you exited like what a bunch of people call secondary school, but it's high school to the rest of the country?
Yeah, I went to college. I just kind of this podcast really I haven't really gone out a lot of my comfort zone a little bit. Kind of stayed in the local area, just worked, kind of finished college a little bit, trying to go back again, and just trying to perceive life in a whole new way. I'm trying to get as much experience from everyone in the world as possible because I found experience is technically true knowledge.
I mean, this is a great way to meet people, but seriously suggest that if you have the opportunity to physically leave your area and get out and see things, and if you want to come back, do that. By the time I was 23, I'd been to California twice. I'd hitchhiked back from Yellowstone National Park to Michigan, which is where I live, and I had been to Tennessee a bunch of times, Chicago a handful of times as an adult, and I just like wanted to see what the rest of the world was like in broader strokes with less definition.
That's actually what I planned on doing in the a little bit late into the winter was using all the money I've saved up and try and travel. I worked with people that are from Romania and Bulgaria who've become really close friends of mine for years now. Had them on the podcast. I wanted to go visit them and live with them. I had a place to bunk if I went over there. I've met people in Australia I want to go see. I've met people from Texas. I've met people from literally all corners of the globe, and especially someone I met recently, a woman from Jamaica who does a positive podcast. And I'm like, it's all about, there's good people out there. You just got to make sure, if you really want to truly experience something, you got to go over there for yourself. You can't just make a justified claim on anything. I think a lot of people are too quick to judge on the basis of little information they know.
Oh yeah, for sure. And a ton of people just have walls up because they think that they need them. Like all you have to do is have a conversation with somebody. Having that one conversation that lasts 45 minutes, hour and a half, couple hours, it may be the only conversation that you have, but it could be a hugely impactful conversation.
You're talking to
Like,
someone who has these conversations probably 3, 4 times a day. I've done hundreds of them. And let me tell you something. Anybody that wants to know what it's like to do something like that, I definitely recommend it. It's something, not all people are going to be interested and open to, but it has definitely increased my knowledge when it comes to understanding the world and how people work a little bit better. We all come down to the same basis in the podcast. We talk about one thing towards the ending of it or in the middle of it. Sometimes takes up the whole show. It's just the whole fact that society's it's crumbling a little bit. There's some things wrong here. We're not properly handling it correctly when it comes to the fact. I'm not talking about politics, not talking about religion, not talking about these types of problems that are considered immediate. We're talking about the problems in your own life and people how are more willing to hurt others to get their own satisfaction.
do you know what the Ouroboros is? I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong.
The Northern Lights.
No, not the aurora borealis. The I think it's called an ouroboros. It's a snake that eats its own tail.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard about it, but I don't know too much about it. Never experienced one. It'd probably be
I
cool to watch.
personally think that that's society, and that even in our worst moments, I don't really think of us as crumbling. I think the weakest parts of society falls off, and we find a way to turn it into something else.
I think more
We
people, I wouldn't say crumbling, I guess would probably be a wrong word. I think it's the fact that we choose to be comfortable in a world where comfortability stands on a line of not doing anything anymore, not being productive, not doing what we want as people, just seeing how others view us and choosing to model ourselves off what other people think of us. I think that's a giant problem nowadays with people looking for celebrities as being the main
Yeah, as far
influences and
as
how they should.
generalizations go, yeah, you're definitely dead on. I totally agree with you. But the glorious part is that there are people like you and I and other people that are hell bent on sort of punching through that.
Well, sad factor is those people like us, they're not typically the norm. I really want to make it the norm. I want to make more people open. I want to make more people understand, and just being able to have an hour conversation with someone is truly revelational into your own life. Whether I've had people come on that want to display a character. I've had people come on that want to do something. Have come people on just trying to post or platform something. And I tell them it's conversation. If you want to choose whatever we want to talk about, go ahead. I'm not going to be closed off to it. I want to try and talk about it as much as I possibly can with as much information as I know how. Because information, like I said, that's the true knowledge. It's experience. It's all about what views we've made through our life, what things, not about being changeful, but about understanding and trying to see the other side's perspective.
Though I'm not gonna try to break the fourth wall too much. I don't want to take that away from
Break
like what.
it. That's the best part. We
Oh, really?
we break the fourth wall. We do whatever we want in the podcast. That's what makes it unique, like the
All right,
Condor in
all
front of
right.
me.
Um, when does this episode air, and how many episodes into your show are you?
I'm about. I don't want to give away the exact number because then that
Right,
shows,
right.
but it usually goes up in a couple weeks sometimes. Depends on what I feel like the show should go up on. I try and get the ones I are already recorded up first, and then I try and do it because the whole possibility of I can do one every single day and I could post it up that day. But I feel like if I always had one in case one doesn't come together, that I always have one I can still post. It
No, that's
gives,
definitely wise to be like a couple steps ahead.
yeah,
It's definitely wise. I'm generally in the same boat with the show that I put together. Right now, we're give or take 3 to 4 weeks ahead.
yeah, I'm about probably. I don't want to give the whole light. I could do it after the podcast for sure, but I'm
No,
definitely
no, that's fine.
I'm way ahead of where I probably should be on the number of podcasts I do a night. I think it's just the concept of I'm very interested. I can be tired 1 minute. Like I like today. Let's say I had a long ass day. Okay, didn't get off work until like a double shift. So next thing I know, I'm podcasting with someone. I'm full energized. I don't see sleep happening in the near future, even though definitely I would like to get some. It's the whole concept of this fuels me being able to talk to people like yourself. I mean, you're introducing me to a whole, first of all, good conversation, but also a mind of someone from a different place than where I'm from.
No, I don't get to meet a lot of people from the East Coast, and my experience with it has been far limited compared to what I would have liked to have experienced by the time I'm 30, which is what I am right now. I've been to New York once. That's it. And I was there for 12 hours because I was helping a friend move
You were
his
in the
grandma.
roughest part of East Coast there, buddy.
Right, but that's what we wanted to do. She was moving to Montclair, New Jersey. He called me like the night of the move and said, "Hey, what are you doing tonight into tomorrow into the next day?" I said, "Nothing. I got the next day 2 days off." I didn't sleep. We packed up his grandma's house in less than 4 hours, put it all in a U-Haul, and in 14 hours later we're in Montclair, New Jersey. After we move her out, it's at 10, 11 o'clock at night. We find a hotel somewhere that's really cheap. It was like $85 for the three of us in New Jersey, somewhere across the water. We wake up, we got to do a couple things for his aunt that we did not anticipate doing at all. and we didn't end up getting like to Manhattan until almost 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. We took the bus in to Penn Station. We like traversed sort of Times Square into Uptown. Okay, so we just had a fun time. We went through Central Park a little bit. We caught a buzz on one of the benches in the middle of the night at Central Park, and then we got like right back on the bus, went back to the car, which was in New Jersey, and we headed back to the Midwest. And so we were really only in New York for like 4, 5, 6 hours max. And it left an impression for sure, but I've always had a curiosity about like Baltimore, about Boston, about Philadelphia. uh what's another one that I'm trying to think of that isn't hitting me? Washington DC is a huge one for me.
I think anywhere you go, the people are a little bit different, but we're all kind of a bit of the same. We don't really talk to anybody anymore. You know, it's a little bit different. If I was going to experience somewhere in the Midwest, more place that would seem maybe stereotypical, like say Texas, everybody rides a horse. It's not like that at all. It's actually a lot like it is here. You know, looking at somewhere like where you're from, it might be around the same basis and stuff here, but I think the problem is we choose to act a certain way, which becomes the norm. And then exceptions like you and exceptions like other people out in the world that truly show their true self or show who they truly are and try and be as creative as possible. It's something that the world kind of needs because then you discover these people. And sadly, I have to only discover it through a platform because I can't really get this out of everyday conversation. I try and go to places with a little mobile recorder and people are just they're not open to it, which is the weirdest thing is that this has become a platform where it seems like it's connected me to a whole new wide variety of people that truly want to have a voice.
It a ton of it is built on these perceptions of looks too. So like if you don't look like somebody who needs to have a recorder in their hand for something, people aren't going to care what you have to say. And even if you did, 50-50 shot they walk away anyways. And that seems to, you're right, that people are just completely closed off. um I hate that like the look thing totally happens and that the internet allows us to sort of bypass all of these like social restrictor plates that we typically would have on in the course of meeting somebody or like breaking down and getting to know somebody. And instead you just like you have things like Omegle and Chat Roulette were really great ideas when they first started, which is sort of what you kind of have, but in a very, I don't know, much more um, targeted way. It makes way more sense because instead, both of those platforms have just turned into genitalia.
Yeah.
Like they're completely being abused. And instead you're like, no, no, we're gonna get to know strangers in a really weird intimate way that's really awesome for a little while and see what happens.
It's literally all about rolling the dice, but it's all about connection, man. Whether it goes good or bad, there is no good or bad. It's just talking. Someone wants to crack jokes the whole time, let's crack jokes the whole time. I don't care. I think it's the whole fact is I don't edit, I don't do any of these types of things because it ruins the conversation, you know. I want everyone into the light of my experiences I possibly can give them. And kind of wrapping it up here, you gave me the best at least representation and just kind of expression. Like we started off the podcast great and it went great. We talked, being able to talk for an hour, just be able to kind of relax and just, forget everything. Cause I think a lot of people, they forget how to unwind after all the problems of the world become so influenced. We just want to sleep and hope they go away until the next day. Well, guess what? Sometimes you need to express that in something you're interested in just so you can truly, I guess, relieve tension.
Oh yeah, no, there's it's a saving grace that outlets like this and public outlets on YouTube, and you mentioned Joe Rogan earlier has a program that does a great job of distracting people from like the everyday bullshit, right? Like
You gotta ignore, and sometimes you really have to try and forget all the mundane bullshit, but you're not doing that by just going home and sleeping. You gotta talk it out. You gotta express it in some type of matter, whether it's doing something you love, video games, any type of thing. You need to do something that doesn't restrict you to life's wonderful factors.
I'll be honest with you. There's a element to your show that I really relate to.
Is it pizza delivery?
Well, for sure, but there's this like almost it seems like desperation that you have for
Oh my
meeting new
God, my
people.
show reeks of desperation.
No, no,
Oh.
no, I wouldn't say reeks. I think there's just like this thin vein of it that the desperation is social interaction. And because today's society is so closed off, like what are people like you and I to do? When we approach strangers on the street, we just look crazy.
Yeah, we
So
just gotta
we're
we gotta tough it out, dude. I've been doing it my whole life. You've probably been doing it your whole life too. We have a wantingness to know more and connect with people,
an
and
inappropriate desire to meet strangers and
I
get to
just
know other people in these weird situations and learn as much as we can about the intricacies and nuances about this individual, like what makes this person tick, what is it that keeps you waking up every day.
I just want to know two things about people. One, do you like pineapple on your pizza? And two,
Hell yes.
and two, do you use ketchup on your eggs? Because if you use ketchup on your eggs, you're a savage, and I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I don't do that either. That's
All right.
crazy talk.
My whole family on my dad's side does that. They're all from Baltimore and they dump their eggs in ketchup. I'm like, all right, you're all savages. I'm out. It's too
Dude,
much.
I met this guy from, I think he was from Ecuador, and he put ketchup on his cereal.
Look,
Not
bro,
like
I don't
instead of milk, like also.
I'm not gonna judge because I haven't tried it. But I also used to talk crap on a Haitian mud cookie, and then I actually had one, and they're not half bad. I don't know
That's
if
what
you
happens.
I don't know
Is
if
like
you
we
know
all
what a
get
Haitian
slapped
mud
in the
cookie
face
is.
by karma someday. Is we wake up one day and we're just like, "Oh, that's how that feels."
Well, a Haitian mud cookie did not sound appetizing considering it's 90% dirt, 5% butter, and 5% salt. So, and then I had it and I was like, this tastes like a snickerdoodle. Like, this is really good.
I don't like snickerdoodles, so I wouldn't appreciate that.
I don't normally order a snickerdoodle, but let me tell you something. When you're eating dirt and it does not taste like dirt, it's an eye opener for sure.
Is there any chance that I can tell you sort of about the show that I put together?
Yeah, go ahead, man. I was going to give you a minute here at the end to be able to promote where people can find you.
Okay. Well, I wanted to do a little bit to explain it a little because we're deceptive in the way that things are set up. There isn't really much of a descriptor. It's brief, but I don't think it really gets people like this is sort of a behind the scenes sort of look at things. Um, we really try to bring out the most hilarious and the most realistic parts of just about anything that we can talk about. Each topic or each episode is generally a different generic topic that we've decided about, but we end up going on these tangents about how we feel and what this makes us do. And a lot of the time, we're really trying to bring the hilarity out of the situation through life experience and storytelling. Uh, I play a sort of semi mythical character that is a bird, and my co host is a warlock. He's chosen that to keep his identity sort of undercover, under wraps. And I don't really care about my identity getting out. I'm not too afraid of what I'm doing. But the show is a little outlandish, and we definitely discuss some like NSFW, not safe for work situations. But there's also some raw intimacy that happens on the show that's really interesting.
What? Hang on
What
a
what
second. Raw intimacy? What are you talking about?
I mean, like there you and I have had a conversation over the last hour that has been intimate. It doesn't have to
Oh,
be
okay.
sexual.
All
It's
right, right.
just like
My
you
brain went
connect
completely
with
another
people.
option.
Like it's a chemical thing that happens.
Yeah, yeah,
And it doesn't have to be sexual. It's just
yeah.
totally like you link up with people
It's being on
and
the
you
same
start having a
frequency.
this oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And we do it with people like you do all over across the country. My co-host is like 3 states away, and we do the show every week together. And we have a really fun time doing it. It's about a half an hour long, and then we do an unedited version or an uncut version called The Full Bush, which you can find at our Patreon at patreon.com/talkingchaos.
Well, like, okay, I'm glad we elaborated on that because you said the way you said it was very, very pornographic and sounded like I was about to step into the pizza
Well,
vendor.
don't let that keep you away from the idea that our show might come off as slightly pornographic
That's
anyways.
the best part about making it your show, though. When you do your show, you're able to run it how you want to run it. And I love that because I love true creativity when someone
We
chooses.
just discuss a lot of adult topics like sex and some alcohol and drug content has come up, but we also have conversations about mental health and education and self-awareness and like what relates to me and my co-host the most, basically, and just different conversations about these topics.
Well, just like ordering a pizza when your parents aren't home and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're probably, you know, just out of your mind on a sugar high or drunk or whatever you want to say, depending on what age you are. Parental advisory is it's a thing. You definitely want to have your parents telling you, hey, maybe you don't need 50 pizzas right now. Maybe you could just get one and see how you feel about it. So you don't
Did
wake up
you ever
with 48 other ones.
did you ever get an unedited CD before the age that you were allowed to?
Yeah, I'm not disclosing that illegal information, but yes.
Um, I did, definitely. The worst thing that I ever did in order to do that is that we had gone to like a NASCAR race and spent something like 14 hours on our feet. And I asked my mom if I could go get The Sickness by Disturbed. I was a young kid. Please excuse my taste in music. So she says, you can, but you have to kiss my feet with my socks off. And I did.
You're a savage, sir. Your commitment for unfiltered things is something of amazement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That shows you what people will put in with a creative mind and a passion for something.
Well,
And
that's how powerful the F word was to me. Like kiss a foot that's been sweating and stinking all day. Powerful.
well, sir, I appreciate you being on my podcast. And I want to say to everyone out there, go look up his stuff. It's wonderful. And what's it called again? It's called Maximum Chaos.
Talking chaos.
Talking Chaos. You should have called it Maximum Chaos.
Well, we're having a conversation, and more often than not, the conversation is pretty chaotic. So I figured talking chaos fit the bill.
But it's always filled with the ultimate pleasure of maximum chaos.
For sure. For
Well,
sure.
thank you so much, Condor, for being on the podcast. It was awesome talking to you. And stay tuned for the next episode of Out of the Blank.